Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Investigation. In today's episode of Investigation, I will go over the cotangent, secant, and cosecant derivatives, as they're pretty simple after we've went over sine, cosine, tangent derivatives, and honestly only need the information of sine derivative that you can get all of the derivatives other than sine, so you need somewhere to start with on trigonometric functions. And let's see what our daily problem is. Our daily problem is find the derivative of sine of cosine of tangent x. This at first might look very daunting or might look very complicated, but it is really not, because it just requires a simple use of the chain rule actually twice, and we can just get it out because we all know that sine, cosine, and tangent derivatives are. So pause the video, of course, if you want to try this problem, and proceed the video when you're done. So let's get started. First of all, we have sine of x. The derivative with respect of sine of x is equal to cosine of x. The derivative with respect of cosine of x is equal to negative sine of x. And the derivative with respect of tangent of x. Well, the derivative with respect of x of tangent of x is equal to 1 over cosine squared of x. And I rather write it in this form. I don't have to deal with other functions like secant or anything like that. But of course you can write it as secant squared of x as well. So let's take a look at this problem. How will we handle this kind of problems? Obviously we need a chain rule and we need these identities. So we can start off by just simply doing the chain rule. So what we basically have over here is this derivative, sine of cosine of tangent x. This derivative is equal to, so the derivative of this without the derivative, so like this. So the inside is still the thing before the differentiation, and we need to multiply it by the derivative of the inside function. So something like this. And actually we've done the first part. We cannot simplify it even more, or I mean you might be able to, but this is not what we actually want. We just need to get rid of all of the derivative stuff, and that would be equal to, so what we have over here, just copy down, times this thing. This thing we need to use the chain rule again, and that would be equal to negative sine of tangent of x. So like that, times the derivative of tangent of x. And the first two part is done, and we just simply have negative at the front with this thing. It's kind of disgusting if you think about it, because it really is a lot of trigonometric functions multiplied together, but we really cannot do anything about it. And last part about tangent derivative, we just have times 1 over cosine squared derivative. And since we cannot cancel out anything over here, we can just write it as secant squared derivative if we want to do that. And let's get started by our 3 derivatives today. So the cotangent, secant, and cosecant. Obviously, cotangent, we just simply have find the derivative of cotangent of x, and that is equal to the derivative. You can either do 1 over tangent of x, that's possible as well, but since the derivative of sine and cosine is easier to deal with, over here we can just use cosine of x over sine of x over here. So this, we can use the quotient rule to get that's negative sine squared of x minus cosine squared of x over this denominator sine x squared. And simplify that, the numerator, you can see that's just -1. We just have -1 over sine squared of x. And obviously you can simplify that to negative cosecant squared x. And for our second derivative, we have the derivative with respect of x of secant x. We want to find that. And obviously, we can just simply use 1 over cosine of x over here. That's the simplest thing to do. That's 1 over cosine of x. And you can, again, use the quotient rule over here. We can just simply get, because this is just 1, so it's much easier to deal with. So that would be equal to the sine of x over cosine squared of x. And I mean, you can leave it like this if you want to keep it only sine and cosine, but you can also combine one of the sine and one of the cosine to form tangent. So tangent of x times secant of x. You can write it this way if you don't want denominators appearing in those derivatives. And our last derivative would be the derivative of cosecant of x. And that, we can simply use 1 over sine x as our rule. And again, we will need to use the quotient rule over here. So that is 1 over sine x. We can use the quotient rule over here again. We get negative cosine of x over sine squared of x. Obviously, you can leave it like that again. And more, I mean, maybe it's controversial, but a cleaner way to write it is negative cotangent of x times cosecant of x. And that is all of the stuff that we're going to cover today. The cotangent, secant, and cosecant derivatives. They're not so hard to derive just from sine derivative. And honestly, you just need to remember sine derivative and cosine derivative for you to do well in trigonometric differentiation. Thank you for watching this episode of Interestigation, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.